Imagine a world where the games you play aren't just mindless entertainment, but heart-pounding, story-driven experiences that leave you thinking about them long after you've turned off your console. I've spent my life immersed in these worlds, from the retro games of the 80s to the blockbuster hits of today. And like many of you, I've often thought, what if I could create something better? Something more than just another repackaged sequel or a basic cash grab. So in about 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you of an idea that became a second calling for me. And in 60 seconds, I'm going to reveal how much it's actually going to cost. And by the end of the video, I want to offer you a gift if you want to join me for this ride. So I don't want to just talk about an amazing game and what makes an amazing game. I want to actually build one. And I'm going all in. I'm literally building a new game studio from the ground up, and I'm about to take you along for the ride. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the real reason why I believe the gaming industry is broken and what we're doing to fix it. But that's not all. I'll also reveal the sentimental origin of this video game studio's name and one genre that I really believe is key to be the next big gaming breakthrough, and how we're planning to actually make waves in an industry that's dominated by giants. $800,000. That's what I'm spending this year on this project. It is an investment unlike anything I ever even thought I would make in my life. This crazy adventure that we're both going to embark on together is either going to be the most costly lesson of my life or one of the greatest success stories in the industry. I don't know what your name is right now watching, but I'm about to lift the curtain completely. I want to pull you in and show you that we're not just another game studio. We are hopefully the future of storytelling in games. So trust me, what I'm about to show you is just the beginning. So first off, why launch a new risky studio in a saturated competitive market? And where the hell does anyone get a spare $800,000 to build a game? Let's dive in. It is a rough time for business right now in games. There is over 11,000 video game studio layoffs just by mid-year this year alone in 24. Publishers are clearly tightening their wallets. Investment capital is nowhere near as available as it was during COVID, when everyone was stuck at home and people were pouring money into the industry. So you look at games that released this year like Skull and Bones, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, Sony's Concord that just bombed this year. Like, we're talking a collective $1 billion plus between them all up in smoke. That's the sound of $1 billion disappearing. It's actually anticlimactic. But that said, these games, they all have something in common when you look at them. I believe it's because they're solely built around making money first and foremost, before everything. Everything is slapped onto the monetization model. And I think players can see right through it. So every game that's actually made by a team that truly loves what they're making, is empowered to make it, will always find an audience. Sure, some are smaller than others, but it's the same concept as buying fine art. Like, people don't just buy something that's pretty to hang it on their wall. They buy it for the story of the artist that made it. Because it turns out that blood and sweat and tears and authenticity are actually extremely valuable, now more than ever. So entertainment will always be valuable. More specifically, quality entertainment. I think that having a vision for that, which I do, is mission critical to success. So the decision to actually start a studio, it kind of came to me between Christmas and New Year's last year. That's usually a quiet and least busy time of the year for me. And I really try to reflect on the previous year and what I want to do in the next and what are the goals. And I started to ask myself, it's like, what do I always want to do? It's like, well, I always wanted to make a game, like the same way someone wants to write a book or a novel, but I didn't know how, obviously. And making anything of considerable scale is always going to take 5 to 10 years to get there. So I'm realizing if I don't attempt to build something now, when I'm in my early 40s, this opportunity will almost certainly close in a very near future. So what was I really waiting for? And that was the catalyst. So now I've always battled a tendency to procrastinate. I know this about me. It's the hardest thing. I'm a creative guy at heart. So luckily, I've learned a few tricks to get around it. So I knew it's all about framing. So to start off, I said, all right, let's not try to make a great game because I have no idea how to make one and I've never made one before. So instead, let's build a crappy, solo, janky game this year using tools and free stuff that's out there, which sounded way more attainable and lowered that barrier of the mountain ahead. so I could take a few first steps. And I told myself it does not need to be a blockbuster success. It doesn't need to compete with people that have been doing this their whole life. In the beginning, I know that your success is purely Boolean. It just comes down to whether you do something or not. Did you show up to the gym or did you not? That's it. If you did, you've won, and you do it again. So that sounded much more manageable to me, and it was just the mindset that I needed to get started. So I began by researching indie dev blogs and all kinds of YouTube developers, success stories, failure stories, people complaining, you name it, right? And I started to really familiarize myself with the lingo and the landscape. I probably watched like over 80 hours of long form videos, really, from solo devs to GDC presentations and AAA veteran content creators. So side note, if you're watching that much, definitely watch it 1.5x or 2x speed, because time is money, my friend. So interestingly enough, one thing that kept jumping out at me after watching all these developers talk about their games and the processes was that none of them understood marketing. Like none. Or how to start or build or run a business or manage a team. Like literally none of them. And they also were just so all focused on money, everyone. And I get it, man. It's like, if you have a job you don't like and the dream is to develop games, it's like, well, I need money. And so I need a game that makes money and what's going to sell. And everyone's talking about money, money, money. And it's like, I got it. But you got to understand that's the curse. That's what flips things and gets things over. When you start with the money, you lose the magic, and you need that magic first. The margins will come. So this got me pretty excited. So what about my money? How did I actually do this? How do I get $800,000? The answer is not that easily. So look, I'm not saying that I'm an expert by any means, but I can speak from my own personal experience. I've always been a creative guy at heart, and I took a leap in 2019 to start my own marketing agency. I know how to do medical marketing. I've done it my whole life. So as of this recording, that agency now has 70 full-time employees. It's grown an average of 50% year over year for the past 5 years on average. It makes over $1 million a month, and it's continued to scale quickly. It's not a billion-dollar company. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not even a multimillionaire. You don't get all the money that you just make. You have to pay your team and everything else. Like, there's a profit margin in there that you get. So it's not also a $300 million AAA studio. Like, you have to be lean and mean, but it's certainly respectable for a dude like me that learned some of his leadership skills running a guild in World of Warcraft in college. So I knew that I could funnel some of the profits of my agency into this venture carefully, slowly, and with the right planning and forecasting and ramping up. That would let me figure out just piece by piece of what we were actually building and how we might actually get there. And you do that just one step at a time and one conversation at a time that started with one simple post on Reddit. So businesses are built on strong leadership, articulate vision, and a top-down culture of trust. So after listening to all those indie devs, that I realized that I could actually do something that was more than crappy, maybe make something special. I might actually have a real shot to build something meaningful that good people can rally behind. I spent my whole career building brands for other people. So what could I do with my own IP? So the only question then was, how do you build a game that you actually want to play? So this venture, it's not just about making a video game or chasing some subscriber count. Those are important steps, clearly, but I've already built and I already operate a successful business. So it's genuinely not just about money. You need it, it's really important, but it's a huge reason why this industry is struggling right now. I'm prepared to lose. I'm willing to take the risk. And because of that, I think that's the reason why I can be so authentic and transparent and vulnerable, all in a pursuit of a larger goal that other people, hopefully like yourself, can rally behind. And that alone can separate us from almost every other AAA studio out there. And I think that that's a pretty good place to start. So how did Red 16 Interactive come to be? Well, I'm an artist and a creative soul at heart. Always been into art, writing, music, you name it. I actually sought out a career in gaming. I applied to a bunch of game design positions coming out of college. Companies like Blizzard Entertainment, they were red hot, right, at the time, and synonymous with the highest quality of games. So I think I applied to Blizzard, no joke, 5 times over a couple years, and I never ever even got an email back from them or an initial screening. So I was actually able to interview at Nintendo and Capcom, which was cool eventually after college. But ultimately, I couldn't land those positions either. I didn't have the experience, or I didn't have a strong enough portfolio to show that I can actually do what they were trying to hire for and what they'd pay me for. Now, as a business owner, I actually understand. I respect that. It's hard to get a gig when you don't know what you're doing. But that's when I discovered the world of marketing and advertising, which turns out was a lot easier for me to get into and subsequently paid way faster and much more than perhaps my gaming career might have. So there were no influencers or streaming or esports at the time, so the career was really all you had. And so fast forward now a decade or two, it's like I've had the good fortune to learn and work at an agency for 7 years before it sold. Which I actually had some equity in. That was a previous company I was in. And then I founded my own in 2019, which is awesome and continues to grow this today. So is there there's a lot of hard work and effort and sweat and tears that gone into that to get me into my early 40s at this point. The question is, what's next? And so those experiences have afforded me the resources, the knowledge, the freedom, all of that to let me tap back into the creative roots and where I began and that childlike wonder from growing up, and all diving into my passion for and my love for just telling great stories and building great experiences and making some amazing worlds. So I wanted to name the studio something that was meaningful to me. Even if it was going to end up like a solo venture, I wanted to get back to the beginning and my beginnings for the name. So when the internet, I'm the guy that grew up without internet until I was telephones and all that, and then actually it came. So it was just modems and dial-up, right? AOL was the place to be. Everything was tied to your chat handle name, and so I wanted the name Red 5 because I was at the time it was a deep cut reference to Luke Skywalker's call sign for his X-wing in his first Star Wars movie. And please note, this was long before Star Wars was beaten to death by Disney. But I actually now, and I'm not that much of a Star Wars fan, but I digress. Red 5 was taken. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's try Red 6. And then I was like, well, I don't like Red 7. And I just kind of went up numbers that I thought was cool. And then finally one was available and it was called Red 16. So I took it. And that was my handle for several years. And I actually bought the domain name for it too, which just sat dormant for decades until I actually made use of it this year. It just made perfect sense. I was like, at last, this thing I've been paying for all these years. And so Red 16 Interactive was born. And it was a callback to my roots and my humble beginnings, to a simpler time when gaming was not just about monetization or player retention or player counts. It was about something more. It was like when stories were the real objective and success was just the byproduct. Something that this industry has just slowly reversed the priority of over the years, and to their detriment, I think, for players globally. So now that the studio's decided, let me tell you a little bit about the premise of the game. So I believe that the world is craving fresh IP. I know that I am. So I started by thinking about, just in general, what games, books, movies, what cultural phenomena have I always loved the most? And I realized that when you look at the biggest and most successful IPs and franchises, there's one overarching quality that each achieves masterfully. And it's the perfect mixture of new and a wondrous world of experiences and characters, and also woven into a really compelling narrative. You just have to have that. So I looked at shared universes like Harry Potter series, Star Wars, Avatar, Jurassic Park, Alien, and Alien 2, best sequel ever, Stranger Things even, Ghostbusters, right? Each one creates a world that's both dangerous, but also really filled with interesting characters, and it has unknown rules that the viewer gets to learn. The fun is discovering the rules. So it's like, wait a minute. So the Predator uses vision and can only see with heat? It can't see Arnold when he's covered in mud? And he can turn invisible. So how do you defeat that? And then you watch human ingenuity defeat that. It's the same thing in Aliens and the others. It's you watch Game of Thrones. It's wait a minute. How do White Walkers work? How do dragons grow? You get sucked into the world and the lore. And that's what makes it so special. So it's such a great escape from normal life to dive into that kind of creativity. You look at games like Zelda, it's they've created these worlds and sandboxes for people to explore in their own set of iconic characters. You look at God of War, they just dropped this angry dude right into Santa Monica Studios reimagining of Greek mythology and more recently Norse mythology. It's like you have this rich cast of characters in their own narrative adventure that you get to explore. So all of that applies, everything, into first-person games and strategy games. It's just, there isn't that much different that's being explored. And the boundaries in video games have been pushed pretty far already in most of the genres. But I think that there's one that is ripe for expansion, and that's fairy tales and folklore. Like, fables are timeless childhood stories. They've been told for hundreds of years. And the big thing is that they're told for hundreds of years because, or thousands even, because they're interesting. Like, they're nostalgic, they're curious, like they're designed to entertain, and they're all in the open source domain. They're all available for creative interpretation and exploration. So you look at something like The Little Mermaid. So that tale is thousands of years old, right? So like so many of Disney's movies, they took the rights, like they only have the rights to Ariel and Flounder and Ursula. Like those are the characters they invented, and they put their own narrative retelling around. But the story itself of The Little Mermaid is timeless. So I can make a game of The Little Mermaid. That's totally fine. I can't use Disney's characters. So you can actually go back and tell something closer to its darker origins. And like, how amazing is that, right? Because not all fairy tales have happy endings. And that's what got me so excited. Fables are absurd. They're fantastical and quirky, and they're odd. And sometimes they're charming, and sometimes they're just downright depressing and bleak. So they really do not have happy endings, not all of them. But I think that there's an opportunity to build an amazing IP by uniting that world, almost like Shrek did, right? But you make it darker and more whimsical, almost like the later Harry Potter movies, and you go deeper like Christopher Nolan's Batman. So upon this bedrock, Red 16 shall build its empire. I am crafting a thoughtful and a perilous world with complex and compelling characters. Because there's so much potential in an otherwise greatly underutilized genre. So instead of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, we can build our own complex versions of an older Red Riding Hood and Jack the Giant Slayer and Alice in Wonderland. And even better, we can mix them all together in a shared universe of fables and folklore, where you get to decide, like, where are we coming into this fable? Is it before their fable happens? Is it during, or is it after? And we get to control that and build that into a really engaging story. We make it gritty and grounded, but still fun and full of adventure. And we get to blend Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm in these timeless fairy tales that are known globally and then been passed down for millennia. It's going to be awesome. So what does the future hold for Red 16? The last 9 months have been pretty crazy, clearly. You know you're going to make mistakes when you don't even know specifically what you're aiming at. I've already made a few, without question. It blows my mind how every single poster video is on the topic of making games is about money. Money, money, money. It permeates everything, like particularly in the indie scene. And it makes sense, right? But I love my current job. I've worked really hard to build a certain level of financial freedom in my life with the agency I operate. So I have room to pursue my passions, but the underlying pervasive requirement of making money is just rampant in game design. So every venture hinges on solving a problem for other people. So obviously the better you do this, the more successful you're going to be. And conventional wisdom says, don't use your own money to start a business. It's too risky. But then again, you got guys like Elon Musk, love him or hate him. Clearly, he's got a track record of success that is not easily replicated. And he's openly advocated that everyone should put their own money into a venture to give yourself the highest possible motivation to make it succeed. I actually agree with that. I was told my whole life, you don't do that, you don't risk it, it's too much. And I realized, like, when you do, your whole heart and soul is into it. And if you work hard enough and you are careful and you listen and you build a community and you work with them, it's like, it's not if you fail, it's just when and how long can you go and how will you get there. So I'm betting on myself here and on the amazing team that I've been able to build. I was so lucky I found veteran talent with years of AAA development and experience. I've got people fresh out of school that are hungry to pour their passion and creativity into building this world. And as a leader, like, you need to see the world as it really is and with all its faults and its challenges. And then you also have to see it as better than it is, and the industry you're in is better than it could be. And I have that vision. And you also finally need to show others how to get there collectively, to discover like, what is the journey and how are we going to do that as a team? And that's what Red 16 is to me. When you love what you do, and you love the community you're serving, and you love the team that you're working with, and you love the creative process of crafting complex and amazing characters and building worlds with a great IP, those are the best ingredients I could possibly think of to create the highest likelihood of success. Because if we build the game we love, someone else will absolutely love it. Hopefully that's you. This is the first of what will become a long-standing series of original content that I'll be releasing. Not just random updates on the game's development, but actually documenting everything I can that's unique and challenging and interesting to me throughout this journey. And I would love for you to be part of it. Building anything of substance, of value, is hard. It's a messy process. And people really shield the world from like that messy process because it exposes the company and exposes yourself, puts you in a really vulnerable state. Most people can't handle that, especially fragile creatives. But I've built my whole career on that vulnerability, and I'm happy to share that with you guys. If you made it this far into the video, you can already tell that this is for real and I am all in. There is so much to talk about and cover in this adventure that I'm looking forward to sharing it with the world. And my studio mantra is, we build openly and we build honestly. Because I believe that transparency and authenticity, they're the ultimate currency that a business has to offer today. So trust takes time to build, but luckily, so do games. So let's build both at the same exact time.